We're leading off this morning with the bombshell interview everyone's talking about so far today. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and laying bare the inner secrets of royal life.
Just hours after the Queen's Commonwealth address on duty, unity, and family, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle shared why they chose to distance themselves from the royal family.
Can you tell us what the question was?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that.
Okay.
It's a girl.
You're gonna have a daughter!
One hand gesture, 2 words in reply. An accusation that reached 49.1 million people worldwide inside 48 hours. For 5 years, Oprah Winfrey never explained that moment. Then, on July 21st, 2026, she watched it back for Vanity Fair, laughed, and said she has no idea where it came from and that she has not done it since.
Hold up.
There's
Stop
several
right now.
there are several conversations.
There's a
about
conversation with you?
Then she gave her reason for asking. It is not the reason the world was given in 2021. The most powerful interviewer alive has finally described her own most famous question. So, what is she admitting? The tape she rolled back. The setting matters. This was not a doorstep. It was not an ambush. According to People, the footage comes from a scene selection career recap video produced by Vanity Fair, in which Winfrey rewatches the moments that defined more than 40 years on television. That format is entirely under the subject's control. Kinsey Schofield, the royal commentator, made exactly that point on Talk TV, arguing that Winfrey could have declined to revisit the 2021 interview at all, and that the subject remains controversial, and, in Schofield's words, not a great reflection of her. Winfrey did not decline. She sat and watched it back.
Nothing's more compelling than watching a 40-year-old man complain that his allowance has been cut off.
By daddy.
And what the camera catches is not confidence. According to AOL's report on the Vanity Fair video, Winfrey mocks her own hand gesture, laughs, and says she does not think she has done it since. The context she offers around the interview is equally revealing. Yahoo Entertainment reported her saying the sit-down had been postponed roughly 3 times because of the pandemic, and that she had not left her house for 322 days. When it finally happened, according to the same account, she believed both Harry and Meghan were ready. Ready is a producer's word. It describes a subject who is prepared to say a thing on camera, not a claim that has been checked. There is a second detail in the retrospective that has drawn less attention and probably deserves more. Winfrey confirmed the length. 3.5 hours were recorded in that garden. 2 hours reached the public. 90 minutes of a global news event exists somewhere and has never been broadcast. Nobody outside her production company has seen it. Nobody outside her production company decided what stayed. That is worth holding on to because every argument about what was and was not asked in March 2021 is an argument about a version of the afternoon that one party assembled. There is one more thing about the format that shapes everything else in this story. A career retrospective is a legacy document. It is not built to interrogate the subject. It is built to let the subject walk through the highlights and say what they meant, which means the 2021 interview was placed in that video as a highlight. It was filed alongside the moments Winfrey is proud of, and then, watching it back, she reached for a laugh and a shrug rather than a defense. That reaction is the tell. Nobody laughs nervously at a moment they are certain about. The 2021 broadcast has been argued about for 5 years.
I was silent.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
The latter.
Okay.
What has never been available until now is the interviewer's own account of what she thought she was doing. She has just given it. And the first line of that account is the one that has done her the most damage. The pitch before the cameras. Here is the sentence that has traveled furthest. According to People's report on the same Vanity Fair video, Winfrey said the interview ran to 3.5 hours, and that, as is always the case for her, she wanted it to be a win-win for the couple. Yahoo Entertainment reported the surrounding line as well. Winfrey said the pair did not know what she was going to ask them, but that she had told them in advance she would try to cover everything. Set that against how the broadcast was sold at the time. According to the Associated Press, Winfrey opened the special by establishing on camera that no questions had been supplied in advance, that no subject was off limits, and that the couple had not been paid. Kathleen Bartson Culver, director of the Center for Journalism Ethics at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, praised those disclosures publicly as a model of transparency. So, the framing in 2021 was journalistic. The framing in 2026 is that the interviewer wanted the outcome to be good for the people being interviewed. Those two things are not the same, and the distance between them is the story. It is worth being precise about what a win-win commits an interviewer to, because the phrase sounds harmless until it is applied. An interview that has been promised as good for the subject cannot be neutral about where it ends up. The subject arrives knowing the destination is favorable. The interviewer arrives having said so. Every question after that carries the promise with it, and the questions most likely to break the promise are the hard ones. Winfrey has spent 40 years insisting that the person in the chair does not get to set the terms. That is the entire basis of her authority as an interviewer. She has now described setting the terms for them in advance, and there is a direct comparison available because she was asked about her intentions once before, days after the broadcast. NBC News reported in March 2021 that Winfrey told Nancy O'Dell she had texted Harry and Meghan before the sit-down to ask what they wanted from it. Her account of the answer in that same report was that their shared intention had been the truth. The truth. That was the word in 2021. In the same conversation, according to NBC News, she said she had been surprised by how far the couple were willing to go, and that she considered the interview powerful because they were prepared to be vulnerable. Powerful and vulnerable are audience words. They describe the effect of a broadcast, not the accuracy of it. Line the two accounts up.
They didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
In 2021, the stated intention was the truth. In 2026, the stated intention is a win-win for the guests. Those are different jobs, and only one of them requires the interviewer to push. The Associated Press noticed the shape of it at the time. Its assessment days after the broadcast was that whatever the couple gained or lost, there was one unambiguous winner, and it was the interviewer. The same report noted what Winfrey had done in comparable settings before. She pressed Lance Armstrong on doping. She questioned Michael Jackson about his skin. In those encounters, by that account, she worked as either prosecutor or confessor. In the Montecito Garden, she chose neither. There is also the commercial shape of it, which is a matter of public record. NBC News reported that CBS paid Winfrey's Harpo Productions a licensing fee understood to be between $7 and $9 million, and that Harry and Meghan themselves were not paid. CBS said 17.1 million people watched in the United States on the night, and, according to the Associated Press, more than 49.1 million worldwide within 2 days. Winfrey also confirmed something about how long she had wanted it. NBC News reported in 2021 that she first approached Meghan for a sit-down before the May 2018 wedding, and that Meghan turned her down at the time, suggesting there might be another occasion. The occasion arrived in a Montecito garden 3 years later, and the single moment everyone remembers from it is the one Winfrey now says she cannot explain. Before that moment gets pulled apart frame by frame, subscribe, because the next section walks through exactly what was said, in what order, and what the tape shows was never asked. The finger to the lips. Run the exchange in sequence because the order is where the argument lives. Meghan Markle begins by describing herself. According to People's account of the 2021 broadcast, she says she has always valued independence, and that she has always been outspoken, particularly on women's rights. Then comes the pivot. She calls it the sad irony of the previous 4 years that she had spent so long urging women to use their voice. Then the gesture. Meghan makes a zip-it motion across her mouth. And then the line. And then I was silent. Winfrey does not let it pass. She leans in, mirrors the hand movement Meghan has just made, and asks the question that would define the broadcast. Were you silent or were you silenced? Meghan's answer is 2 words, the latter. That is the pivot point of the entire 2 hours. In that instant, an accusation moves from a description of a mood to an allegation about an institution. Silent is a choice. Silenced is something somebody else does. Meghan then adds detail. According to Yahoo Entertainment's account of the exchange, she said everyone in her world had been given a clear directive from the moment the world knew she and Harry were dating to answer no comment. Notice what that answer actually contains. Everyone in her world, a directive, from the moment the relationship became public. 3 separate factual claims, each one traceable, if anybody pushed on it. Take them one at a time, because each has a different shape. Everyone in her world is a scope claim. It describes a group. Groups have members, and members can be asked whether they received the instruction. A clear directive is a mechanism claim. Directives are issued by somebody to somebody in some form, written or spoken, formal or informal. And from the moment the world knew they were dating is a dating claim. It places the instruction in late 2016, which is more than a year before the wedding and long before Meghan joined the institution she was describing. That last one is the most testable of the 3. It also sits awkwardly against the timeline, because the same account describes a directive arriving before there was any official relationship to manage. None of that was probed on camera. Nobody pushed.
Was the move about getting away from the UK press, because the press is, is everywhere, or was the move because you weren't getting enough support from the firm?
It was both.
Both.
Watch what happens to the sequence instead. The conversation moves on. The claim is left standing, unattributed, in a 2-hour program that 49 million people would eventually watch. And the gesture is the reason it landed the way it did. A spoken follow-up would have read as skepticism. A mirrored hand movement reads as agreement. Winfrey physically repeated what Meghan had just done before offering her the second option, and the body language of that moment told the audience how to hear the answer before the answer arrived. That is not a small distinction. It is the difference between a broadcaster testing a claim and a broadcaster ratifying one. And that is the exact point in which Winfrey has now offered her defense. Yahoo News reported her explanation from the Vanity Fair video, that she wanted to be clear, that she was establishing whether Meghan had been silenced and whether people had told her not to talk, and that she asked it for clarification so that nobody could come back later and say the point had been missed. Read that defense carefully because it contains the problem inside itself. Winfrey says she wanted to know who had told Meghan not to talk. That is a question with a name attached to the end of it. She did not ask it. What she asked was a binary with 2 words in it, one of which the guest simply picked up. A clarification narrows a claim. This one widened it. Before the gesture, Meghan had described going quiet. After it, the world had a headline saying she was prevented from speaking. There is also the timing of the defense. Winfrey did not offer this explanation in March 2021, when the criticism first arrived and the institution was still absorbing the damage. She offered it in July 2026 in a video about her own legacy, having watched the tape back with the benefit of everything that happened in between. An explanation given 5 years late is not necessarily false, but it is an explanation shaped by knowing how the story turned out. And in the 5 years since, the specifics of that claim have never been publicly established because they were never publicly requested. The questions that never came. This is not a novel criticism invented for the anniversary. It has been made in plain terms by named people on the record. Kevin O'Sullivan, speaking on Talk TV on July 24th, argued that Winfrey never challenged the couple on their major claims. On this exchange specifically, O'Sullivan said the obvious follow-up was 3 words long. Who silenced you? Consider the escalating list of questions that a broadcaster with 50 years of experience would normally reach for after an answer like the latter. Who issued the directive? Was that person a member of the family or a member of staff? When was it issued, given that it is dated to the start of the relationship? Was it in writing? Does it still exist? And the one that matters most, because the palace has always maintained otherwise. Is the account of the institution untrue? None of those were put on camera, and the pattern repeats across the broadcast, not just at that one moment. According to NBC News, Meghan told Winfrey she had approached the palace's human resources department while experiencing suicidal thoughts and had not received help. That is an account of a specific institutional failure involving a specific department at a specific time. The department was not named on air. The date was not established. CNBC reported the financial claims from the same broadcast. Harry said the family had cut the couple off financially in early 2020, that they had been living on the inheritance from his mother, and that the Netflix and Spotify agreements were made partly to fund security. Each of those is a checkable statement about money and timing. None of them were tested in the room either. This is the part that undercuts the idea of a simple oversight. A broadcaster can miss one follow-up under pressure. Missing every follow-up across a 3.5-hour recording is not a lapse. It is a posture. The same pattern applies to the broadcast's most serious allegation. Meghan said there had been concerns and conversations about how dark her son Archie's skin would be.
It has been confirmed that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and baby Archie are in this country for the holidays. And our Dominic Velitis has more from London.
As Fortune noted in its coverage at the time, she did not name who raised them. The follow-up naming the person was not asked either. The consequences of that gap were immediate and public. NBC News reported Prince William's response days later, that they are very much not a racist family. Buckingham Palace issued a statement saying the family was saddened that the issues raised, particularly race, were concerning, and that while some recollections may vary, they would be addressed privately. Recollections may vary. That phrase entered the language precisely because there was no record to check the claim against. Consider what those 3 words were actually doing. A palace with a documented account would have produced it. A palace with nothing would have issued a flat denial. Instead, it acknowledged a dispute of memory, which is the only position available to an institution answering a claim it had never been given the details of. That statement is the direct product of a follow-up that was never asked. Had a name, a date, or a room been established on camera, the response would have been a correction or a confirmation. 5 years later, it is still neither. An interview that had asked one more question in each of those 2 moments would have produced either corroboration or a retraction. Instead, it produced 5 years of argument. And the cost of that gap fell on everybody except the broadcaster. The couple were left carrying allegations they could not fully evidence in public. The institution was left denying something it had not been told the details of. The audience was left with 2 irreconcilable accounts and no way to test either. The only person who could have resolved it in the moment was the one holding the microphone. And the person best placed to have closed that gap has spent this week explaining why she did not. The woman who owns the edit. There is a structural fact underneath all of this that is easy to miss. Winfrey was not a guest on that broadcast. She was the production. NBC News reported that CBS licensed the special from her own company. 3.5 hours were recorded, and, according to Yahoo Entertainment, 2 hours went to air on March the 7th, 2021. That means someone decided which 90 minutes did not. It also means the questions, the framing, and the final cut sat with the same person. When one party controls both the asking and the editing, the interview is not a contest. It is a construction. The pattern critics point to is that this control follows Winfrey into the aftermath as well. The IB Times UK summarized the split cleanly this week. Critics read the new comments as a belated attempt to shore up her journalistic credibility, while others take her at her word that she is simply setting the record straight. Both readings depend on the same underlying fact. She chose to revisit it. Schofield's argument on Talk TV was that a figure with Winfrey's leverage could have ruled the topic out of the Vanity Fair sit-down entirely, and did not, which suggests a decision rather than an accident. She would rather be the one explaining that gesture than have somebody else keep explaining it for her. That instinct is consistent with everything else about how the 2021 special was made. Her company produced it, her company licensed it, her questions shaped it, and her edit finished it. The one element she could not control was how it would age. There is one small discrepancy in the record that illustrates how little of this is fixed. Days after the broadcast, NBC News reported the recording as running 3 hours and 20 minutes. In the Vanity Fair video, according to People, Winfrey puts it at 3.5 hours. 10 minutes is not a scandal, but it is a reminder that almost everything the public knows about that afternoon comes from one source, and that the source has never had to reconcile its own numbers with anybody else's. The reach was not in dispute. CBS said the broadcast generated 12 billion potential social media impressions on the night, and 28.3 billion in the week leading up to it. That is the scale of the machine that carried an unchallenged claim around the world. And it was pointed in one direction by one production company. That is not a confession. That is a re-edit 5 years after the broadcast of a tape she still controls. The question is whether it has worked. What the interview is worth now. Look at what the 2021 broadcast currently buys either party. The numbers were never in doubt. CBS said 17.1 million watched in the United States, and the Associated Press reported more than 49.1 million globally within 2 days. It was, by CBS's own release, the largest primetime audience for any entertainment special of that television season. 5 years later, the reception of the new comments tells a different story. According to Yahoo Entertainment, when Vanity Fair posted the clip to Instagram, the responses were overwhelmingly hostile, with commenters accusing Winfrey of backing away from her own interview and of failing to fact-check it at the time. One reply simply returned the palace's own phrase to her: "Recollections may vary." That is the reversal. In March 2021, the interview was the strongest asset either woman owned. In July 2026, it is the thing Winfrey has to account for in a career retrospective that was meant to be a victory lap. The asset has become a liability, and the person carrying it is not Meghan Markle. The case for Oprah. A case worth making should survive the strongest version of the other side, so here it is. Winfrey's defense is coherent. A binary question is a legitimate technique. Asking whether someone was silent or silenced does force a subject to commit rather than leave the ambiguity hanging, and, as she told Vanity Fair, it closes off a later claim that the point was never properly established. That is a real journalistic function. It is also true that she was not conducting an investigation. This was a first-person interview with two subjects describing their own experience, a format built to record an account rather than to adjudicate it. Very few broadcasters cross-examine a guest describing suicidal ideation on camera. And the disclosures at the top of the broadcast were not nothing. The Center for Journalism Ethics praised them at the time as an unusually transparent way to let the audience judge what followed. There is a further point in her favor. The couple were not paid, according to NBC News, and no questions were supplied in advance. Whatever else the broadcast was, it was not a purchased performance, and the criticism has an obvious convenience to it. It is easy to list perfect follow-ups 5 years later, sitting still with a transcript, knowing which claims became flashpoints. Live, in a garden, with two subjects describing the worst period of their lives, the calculation is different. The counter to all of that is narrow, but it holds. Winfrey has now said she wanted to know who had told Meghan not to talk. Nothing about the format prevented her from asking it out loud. What changed here is the difference between 2021 and this week, stated plainly. In 2021, Winfrey's position was that the interview was a search for the truth, opened with on-camera disclosures about fairness and independence, and defended afterwards as an act of journalism. In 2026, her position is that she had told the couple in advance she wanted it to be a win-win for them, that she cannot account for the gesture that produced its most famous line, and that the question everybody remembers was only ever a clarification. Those are not the same claim. The first is about the audience. The second is about the guests. There is also a change in what she claims the interview was for. In March 2021, according to NBC News, she said the shared intention was the truth. In July 2026, according to People, the stated aim was a win-win for the couple. Truth is a standard. A win-win is an arrangement. One of those can be failed. The other only has to be delivered, and the cost of the shift lands entirely on her. Meghan Markle's reputation was contested before that broadcast, and remains contested now. Nothing said in a Vanity Fair recap changes it either way. Winfrey's reputation, by contrast, rested on a single proposition built across 4 decades, that whoever sat in the chair, the interviewer was working for the audience. By explaining the most scrutinized 90 seconds of her career as a clarification she cannot fully account for, she has confirmed the one criticism she could not afford. Not that she was deceived, that, on the biggest claim she ever put to air, she did not ask. That is what breaking her silence changed. It did not close the file on Meghan Markle. It reopened the file on Oprah Winfrey, and she opened it herself. 3.5 hours were recorded in that garden. 5 years on, the only part still being argued about is a hand gesture its author says she cannot explain. She built a career on being the person who asks the next question. The most consequential interview she ever recorded is remembered for the next question she did not ask. And this month, given the chance to explain that, she laughed and said she had no idea where it came from. So, Tell me where you land on this one. Was the silent or silenced question a fair attempt at clarity, or the moment a broadcaster stopped doing her job? Drop your verdict in the comments because I read every single one. Hit like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about these stories. And subscribe, because the next chapter drops in a few days. If you want the full breakdown of what the palace actually said in the weeks after that broadcast, the video on screen now takes it apart line by line. This is Star Spotlight, where the smiles are for the cameras, and the truth is in whatever they are all so desperate to bury.